While Anzian was busy centrifuging blood vials and Margos toiled with the ancient forge, a small girl sneaked her way through the black walls of the fortress. Her name was Purity, and she was a lancefire, thus she feared nothing. And anyways, father and mother would stomp on anything that dared to harm her, or Canis would eat them, or if all went to hell she could use the blue rune, and call Godfather. Purity hid her presence and sound with the null aura, and hid her image with a weak psyker illusion. Nobody should know she was away, not even Sister Darcy. Sneak, sneak, hey. That warded door should not be open. It was never open. Purity peeked inside cautiously, to find a man reading through father's old data files. An old man, possibly over 50. He even had white hair. And so tall too. You should not read that, father will catch you. She warned the intruder with a serious voice. A child? The man asked in surprise, or maybe shame for being caught. Old people were so strange. A child of House Lancefire. My name is Purity. And who might be you? And what are you reading? She asked, curious. Just a guest of your house, I guess. As for these logs, they are Pef Lancefire's memoirs. When he was also a child like yourself. A wise tech priest was teaching him about the galaxy. The old man explained in a patient voice, then drank from an expensive wine bottle, like father kept for inquisitors and such. That bottle better not be stolen. Father killed an inquisitor once, over a bottle of Amasec. Or with one, I'm not so clear about that part. Purity warned the man, and picked up a data log as well, and started to read too. Ha! It seems father was also naughty and was spanked for sneaking through the old house cruiser, the litany for the vanquished. Didn't learn the lesson at all, going by the rumors she heard from her older battle brothers. Gave him his blank blood to drink, mixed with the wine. A novel purity test, and so ironic. The pale old man laughed and shadows stirred around him, like vultures feasting on a corpse. Purity grabbed one of the bad shadows, and clenched her mind fist, crushing it. A warp spawn, like a mini-demon. What did you do? The man asked in fear. Or maybe surprise? There's some parasites attached to you. Can I eat them? I think I can eat half of them. Purity asked innocently. If the old man agreed, she could gain a bit more power. Eat them? Truly? The man asked with a weird voice. I am still young, you know. Not like the powerful Silent Sisters. But tiny demons like these? Pa, I can eat 2 at once. Purity boasted, although it was a small lie. 1 was easy enough, but 2 may be a bit much, for now. Purity, you say your name was? The man asked again. Purity Lancefire. The one and only. The girl agreed with a dimpled smile. Eat away then. Take your time, it's not like I'm in a hurry anyways. The man answered in a calm voice, then began to read again. Purity followed suit, delighted by father's adventures in his youth, and even learning many things from the digested technical lessons as related by the logs. Now she knew what a cogitator was, for example. Maybe she shouldn't kick the things anymore. While reading, she kept eating the bad shadows one by one, almost like eating snacks while absorbed by a picked log of her Astartes brothers returning from a mission. Hours later, she found herself chatting with the old man, who seemed a bit better now. And she just noticed Clone Master Anzian waiting by the door. She shouldn't be here, old crow. I have seen her father get angry. Anzian spoke over her head, warning the man about father. It's fine, Janetta. What have you found? The old man asked in a mild voice, but also powerful. Like father on the bridge. Go back, Purity. There is danger here. Anzian spoke in a harsher tone. The young girl pursed her lips. Canis, here. She called on the mental link. In a flash of light, the giant wolf appeared and stood tall at her side. Whoa. The wolf asked with wary eyes. Just watch over me. Anzian is scared, so I should be cautious too. She explained in a polite voice. Although it seemed unlikely, the wolf did understand words, even written words. And it was far smarter than a beast, for certain. Still worried, Clone Master? The old man asked with a sharp voice. Even so, maintain a meter distance. Your infection is contagious, Anzian said with a sad voice. I always guessed so, that's why I stayed away. But this girl, she can cure me. She eats them. The man exclaimed in a praising voice. 1 meter, Anzian demanded again, and even pointed at Canis for some reason. Wolf. Canis spoke with a gruff voice, and drew a line on the floor with its green claw. I would say this is surreal, but I did see much worse. Still in top 10. The old man muttered to himself, and began reading again. Purity shrugged and pulled another logbook with her mind. She wondered if father did manage to find a girl, and how. This was the best part. Much later, M also showed up with a lot of armor and weapons which he set on the floor beside the old man. Purity, are you feeling fine? The giant man asked with a kind voice. Great. I think I almost doubled my powers already. If the old man gets infected with these shadows again, please let me have them. Pretty please? She asked politely and even batted her eyelids, like the big sisters taught her. A strange silence fell in the room, as everyone stared at her, maybe in awe, or such. Woo? Canis asked as he drew a new line on the floor, a bit closer to the old man. I'd say 10%. Anzian wondered with a curious voice, just don't move, old crow. When Lancefire returns, he will decide the rest. For now, it seems safe enough. M spoke with a warning voice, then walked away. You know, I didn't eat any food since I came here, but I'm still not hungry. Canis, can you also eat them? Purity asked as she drew a shadow and offered it to the wolf. Canis smelled her hand cautiously, then grinned and licked her palm, taking the shadow with it. A woo, he answered after a minute. Was that for taste good or taste bad? Anyway, it was edible. Matter closed. Purity began to read more, finding out about Decimar then Hannah. Lady Decimar was still around, a house admiral at Elivar, the rogue trader dynasty's capital. Hannah, however, died of old age a century ago. So strange. People could still die from age? Maybe normal people. She hadn't heard of anyone in the house dying of anything other than combat. Even her battle brothers always said they will never die of old age. I think Mother Hannah was a normal person. She died of old age. She spoke out loud, making the two men stare at her for some strange reason. Very likely so, Purity. Our house didn't have many blanks, until your grandmother and then your father came. Not like these days, with millions of them. Anzian spoke with a weird voice, making the other man called Crow blink in surprise. Aha! Grandmother Justine Lancefire. She died when the serpent Fulgrim was killed. But then father found the good Fulgrim and sent him to Terra. I remember that lesson, Purity exclaimed, proud of her excellent memory. The good Fulgrim? Both men asked at once. Hey, so maybe I peeked into the big sister's lessons too. But there wasn't much even in that manual. The Custodes took the good Fulgrim to Terra. That's all. She protested in dismay. How can there be? The old crow asked, and measured Anzian from head to toe with keen eyes. I think so too. Lancefire has too many secrets. Anzian answered cryptically. I should go. The old crow muttered softly, only for Anzian to laugh, much too loud. Oh, old man. There is nowhere to run now. Plus you are still infectious. Read your books, maybe you'll learn not to mess with Lancefire. Purity giggled as well. If the old man wanted to run from father, he would need more luck than existed in the universe. Drink your wine, old crow. I'm not letting you leave until I eat all your shadows. She spoke in a wry voice. She was a Lancefire, and she was what they feared. After a week of hard work, I had finally fixed this system and even helped the fabricator jumpstart several space docks for 10,000 system corvettes and to refurbish the captured Orc-kill cruisers. Although, by this point it was almost a new build anyways. We could use the Macarius engines for deep space travel, and the new Ares engines for in-system travel and combat maneuvers. The Gela fields would be replaced with Gela ramparts, the bridge would need a whole new design, there will need to be torpedo pods on the dorsal side, and drop pods on the ventral side. New Godbane-class lance batteries, and a Nova cannon. The cruisers will take a century to be refit perhaps, but I will get 10 of them for trouble and influx of STCs. Quite a good deal. Are you planning to visit every forge world in the galaxy and remake them so? The fabricator asked me as we watched the first armed sentinel emerge from the production line. 1,000 forge worlds may seem much, but compared to the million worlds in the Imperium. Hardly a problem, I said with a tiny shrug. Are you also a princeps? I hear about a new Titan class. The man asked with a weird voice. You heard more than that. While the Emperor might have modified that warlord class into a Psi Titan, he used frames built by the Mechanicus. And Primarch Corax fought at their side, back in the days. You would have access to the sealed records from, Tell about the Fulgurites. I asked instead. A conservative and conservationist sect inside the cult Mechanicus. They proposed to drain motive force from our enemies. The fabricator spoke with a hidden meaning. I just nodded, deep in thought. There is another side of their creed though. The petrified lightning. Find out what you can, and send the report to the Machine Forge. And monitor their members for outside contact, especially Xenos but also the Inquisition, I demanded in a cold voice, then vanished. Time to see why Canis was acting strange. A second later, I found him as a pillow for purity, with Primarch Corax reading my memoirs and drinking my booze on a nearby adamantium dais meant for Terminator plate. War. My wolf explained in a long sentence. Curing the warp sickness. That made more sense than what I first thought. A series of marks of the floor, drawn by a phase claw. Possibly the danger zones. For people without the blank gene. Click. Purity vanished and returned to her mother, for a purity check. The child was still too weak for real work. For now. I see you already read about Istobon. My first, near loss, I said with a sigh. And yet, you never lost. Not once in your life. Must be quite nice. Corax answered with a mild voice. He did look better a little. A few strands of black hair dotted his head, made you wonder what the Emperor thought when he built them. A limited lifespan for some, perhaps. Or he ignored the dangers of the warp. Most likely the latter. His aura was anathema to demons, so he never considered them a real threat. We are inside the Astronomicon range, Primarch. I almost expect a Custodes to step out from portal, any time now. I added with a wry voice. My father won't take me by force, Lancefire. I guess, I was the backup Shadow Master, in case Alpharius turned. And he did. The old Primarch mused to himself, a bit wiser now. Like I said, I approve of your actions. Normally, this would also mean the Emperor approves too. It always was so, until now. But you are still his Primarch. He will want to see you, one day, I concluded with a shrug. The Emperor was not a doting father, especially not with his gene projects. But he was a controlling one. I know. And I am scared. He may vaporize me, just by his presence. Corax growled with a shudder. You're being silly. Anyways, you can simply mind talk with him. There should be a dedicated channel in the Astronomicon for that. Just be warned, you are not immune to the warp, not your words nor your future. Not until you can turn into a pariah. I spoke with a soft voice, then walked away. M waited outside, looking a bit sheepish. His infection was reduced by 43%. In a month maybe. I pursed my lips and scowled a bit. Using purity like that? Any Primarch was a storm, with himself in the eye. How is purity holding on? Seems to grow stronger, every day. It may actually be beneficial to her. And create some connections. The wise Primarch clone argued, rather well. A child bridge to his unconscious soul. Purity will decide for herself then. I suspect she stumbled onto him by accident? I asked with a wry tone, although I knew how luck works in this place. It was a risk/reward equation, and only the worthy survived. Being given the major role in the play was a daunting task, of higher powers wanting to be entertained. Maybe it was why Sigorak did that theater? This place warped the minds of anyone, and not even gods were free from their roles. If there are any accidents in this universe, then yes. Just like you stumbled onto this giant orc armada by accident, M said with a morose voice, and glared at me. It is not always fun, being thrown into adventure just for entertainment. One needs strong shoulders to shoulder the weight of the world on their back. I shudder to think why your shoulders are so large. I quipped back at him, then vanished, and appeared beside Anne Zion in the Genelab. Well, on the other side of the transparent wall. Any news? I asked without much hope. Mutagenic infection. Warp-based, possibly Xenos. Demonic taint as well. It's a wonder he's alive, but then Primarchs are nigh impossible to kill. You know what it takes, Anne Zion answered with a kind voice, sounding sad but determined. Begin Tyrannid blood testing then. The new Nephilim king first, then the Swarmlord. I doubt regular Tyrannid tyrants have enough power to trigger a transformation in a Primarch, I demanded with a level tone. Anne Zion was more than smart, he would know what to do. The Janetta clone just nodded, already deep in thought. And Purity? He asked after a minute. What about her? She chose her path, now it's her burden to carry. I said with a wry tone, and moved away. A last stop at Ravenspire, and then I can go. Master Lancefire, I can barely recognize the star system anymore. How? Master Shrike asked with a bit of wariness. Just application of knowledge, Master Shrike. And a lot of headaches too. Now, I hope you saw what a proper auxiliar force can do? I asked instead, shifting the topic to my next target. The man nodded cautiously. It does seem very effective. Similar to the Ultramar Auxilia, but using gene mods and blanks instead of PDF soldiers. Expensive too, especially on deployments. Have the blanks I gave you impregnate a few hundred women before induction, and the same with the war clones. The genes should pass on, more or less. Probably less. As for equipment, you have a decent Forge world now. I try to avoid too many frangible munitions for ease of deployment, but the planetary defense can still use them. Artillery and autocannons will always be effective, as long as they have ammo. I offered with a smile. Wait. What about the Primarch? He asked as I waved goodbye. What about him? Corax is still alive, if not wanting to be found. Would you like me to beat him up and throw him at your feet? I asked with a tiny shrug. That's not. Master Shrike muttered as I vanished. It was not like I could give him a bucket of Primarch blood for more gene seeds. Corax was far too infected for that. Instead I absonced a few gene seed canisters from his repository, so I could manufacture another brand of Primaris blanks. In a week or so in accelerated time, I should obtain several thousands Astartes with Corax's untainted seed. On the way to my next target, we took a bit of research time to explore the unique Raven Guard pattern like Corvidari bolts with their extra range and accuracy, perfect for my snipers. Same with tranquilizer rounds that could be used to capture targets. Well, biological targets at least. Even more interesting, a few examples of rare Shadowhawk and Darkwing appeared by accident in my Tesseract, such that I may study and copy their designs for my own forces. Instead of shaky cams I could use helmet_Pictor from now on, along the Shadowmaster_Cloak and Raven_S_Fury thrusters, a wonder of microtech for plasma engines, exactly what I needed for many other suits and weapons in my armory. And I even had Primarch Corax to help. I'm pretty sure he won't mind. As I already promised myself, I spent a week of real time mostly inside the time field, creating several new Primaris chapters with Corax gene seed, only possible because the initial progenoid glands multiplied the gene seed every decade, so 200 times over 2,000 years of accelerated time for the initial Astartes, and then it snowballed every decade, similar to how bacteria multiplied. The Emperor had quite a genial idea with this gene seed project, and Corax even had a better one that allowed neophytes to simply grow their organs internally, without needing painful and dangerous surgeries, except for two glands which were mostly bionic, the durasteel sinews and the black carapace. Sadly, gene seed obtained from blank Astartes were not usable by normal humans, since they still contained blank genes. Or maybe not so sad, if I think about it. I still wanted only blank Astartes for the Imperium, to spare me the hassle of hunting down new Chaos warbands that appeared once a chapter fell to Chaos, as they were so prone to do. 3 times on our way to Griffon 4 we had to divert course and eradicate a Chaos warband pillaging an Imperial sector, and 2 of these were new warbands just fallen to Chaos. In our wake we left 3 Lamentor's successors to establish themselves on nearby hive worlds and begin formatting them into proper fortress worlds, while training themselves on Genestealers and cultists. I was beginning to run out of etheric detectors though, so only a few for each new chapter were possible, but I still had enough phase blades for 500 Astartes chapters, still in storage. Even the sharpest Genestealer claws and the toughest armor and shields could be sliced apart by the Catan swords, so on that front the new chapters were completely superior to any other Astartes in the Imperium. On the other hand, they would lack ships and tanks, not that the Corax gene seed was a proponent of direct engagements. They should also infiltrate pirates and steal orc ships like I did. Being sneaky had other advantages. By the time we arrived at the Forge world, I had indeed amassed a great deal of Corvide gene seed, and the Primarch himself had been restored to health, physically at least. His mental and soul state was still deficient, possibly because of whatever damage he suffered inside the Eye of Terror, until I blew it up. Only Purity seemed to have forged a tentative connection with the old man, possibly because she was cute, or maybe because she ate his warp shadows. He still had his normal shadow. "You're really letting me go?" Corax asked, a bit confused, as we arrived at Forge World Griffon 4 and had to save them once more from another Tyrannid splinter fleet. If smaller than the original Leviathan monster, I'd advise you to make your way to Ordo Xeno's base at Fort_Prescience, along with 3,000 of your new gene sons for their death watch. They would not care much about who you are, not if you're competent enough and not corrupted. I explained with a polite, but stern voice. Still fighting in the dark, but alongside the Death Watch. It would fit, wouldn't it? The old Primarch mused to himself, and glanced to M for support. This is not what he means, old crow. You will be able to investigate the Cabal with the backing of the Ordo Xenos and thousands of Deathwatch. Also investigate the Ordo Xenos and Deathwatch themselves, and find out the traitors, M said with a wise voice. Ah, those extra brain lobes surely helped. Can I see him? My brother? Corax asked with a sad voice. I moved the 3 of us in the Tesseract labyrinth, and brought the Vulcan coffin in front of us. The fulgurite shards still glowed with deadly vibes inside his chest, and the perpetual Primarch was still very dead. Vulcan, he was the best of us. Always so kind. So strong, that he always had to play carefully with his brothers. Sorry Margos, but you're not him. Corax muttered with a grieving voice. That I know, old crow. Too bad I don't have the memory of his death, would have been useful. They were cautious enough to delete it from the gene memories, even though Vulcan was surely dead. M spoke in a solemn voice, his fists clenched tightly. I took out a small pouch of blackstone cards, carved from the walls of the Pharos, and handed it over to the good Primarch. If you find anything, or need help, speak to this plate. Same if you recruit agents for this task. In the eastern side of the galaxy, you will be in my range, and I will know. Is this some kind of Xenos tech? Necron transmitters? Corax asked curious, as he examined the dull black card. No. It does not contain any technology or transmitter, Xenos or otherwise. It is just a spatial coordinate marker. Much like you'd throw some white rocks on the ground when defending a fort, to establish range for your guns. I explained cogently, not that the Primarch seemed convinced. And when you speak to me, I can hear it in my mind. And even talk back. Cool, right? I spoke with the sounding board, directly inside his head. The raven-haired Primarch tilted his head in a bird-like manner, trying to figure out what just happened. Is this some bullshit null magic? Because I'm sure you don't have psychic powers. He asked with his mind. Maybe. The galaxy is full of wonders, and horrors as well. I'm working to extend the range of my powers, but it will take time. I added with a shrug. How long are we staying here at Griffon for? We have time to do some fleet training and maneuvers. M intervened, not a part of the mental chat going on, maybe a month or so. We will wait for the Lamenters, and I have to build a new star system. Plus some Nighthouse business. I decided with a grin. Not only I could establish another Lancefire House branch here, but also base a few Astartes chapters to protect the Galactic South. Maybe 50 chapters or so. There were still dozens of Tyrannid splinters roaming around, plus constant chaos incursions, Orc wars and Necrons awakening. I couldn't be everywhere, but I could disperse my sons. And this nice forge world will surely be grateful and help me build new ships, with the megatons of metal I just rescued from the Orcs. A lot more fucking duty as well, to produce the blank suns, but I didn't mind it that much. It was still a fairly pleasant duty, compared to other jobs. Even better, I just realized the demiurge glass cannons fired a constant beam, just like the iron beamers, which meant I didn't have to change the STC's templates that much for the auxilia. They would still pierce through anyone in the way, giving our troops an immense advantage in open field combat. The Forge world was happy to upgrade their arsenal with my better STCs, even using parts of the Invictus war suits to repair and upgrade their own battle automata, as they appeared to be perfectly compatible, especially the arm and legs. The only thing they disagreed, and rather forcefully, was using Tyrannid armor plates for the armor of their constructs. Holy metal and all that. Anyways, we could still use adamantium and blackstone, so it wasn't that bad. I wisely decided to not force the issue, and keep the Mechonicus on friendly terms. Blackstone was still an order of magnitude more durable than ceramite, and has served me well. Plus it also protected the machines against the warp, which might be more important, and so, after more than a month has passed and a large night house, mainly made of Moirax knights, had appeared on Griffon and began running around for training. Half of the knights were armed with iron cannons and their Volkite Viewglare mostly anti-infantry, while the other with graviton pulsars and quad-las beam cannons, in a better version of the rapier laser destroyer. Then, the other half of my fleet finally appeared. Rather battered and chewed up, like it always happened with Tyrannids. Something even took a big bite from the Eternal Lament, so it must have been a hard fight. Father, you seem well. No ships missing? Librarian Valerian asked from his own Blackstone fortress. Why would they go missing? I asked cautiously as I counted his fleet, and saw 4 of his drop cruisers had indeed go missing. Wait, they were my ships. Come over and I'll show you, he said with a sheepish voice. Oh well. They probably got eaten by something big. I stepped over the void through the labyrinth and then entered beside my son into his tesseract. Maybe a few engines could be salvaged. At least the metal was not fully digested. But I captured the Norn Queen, so maybe we can use it. Looks a bit like the gene crucible we use for our clones, right? Valerian pointed at a disgusting vat of boiling Tyrannid blood and malformed claws. I'll get Anzion to take a look, but it seems a bit much for our level. The Tyrannids are just as advanced as the Necrons, only in biotech. Perhaps we can manufacture armor plates? I proposed with a shrug. My librarian son raised a finger, then set it down. I was thinking better clones, but perhaps you are right. It would not be safe to use a Tyrannid crucible for our troops, and get them controlled by the hive mind. Inert armor is much safer. See? One day, we will have common sense in this galaxy. A very far day. After meeting with Spartan and discussing for hours, Primarch Horax took his new Primaris Marines and a dozen PDF regiments from Griffon, and departed towards Rapture, where the last remaining Knights of House Aramos still fought from their fortified Auric_Keep, another wonder of technology from the Dark Ages that the Tyranids still couldn't take. Also endowed with a whole library of STCs and enough supplies of gene seed and weaponry to arm 50 infantry-type Astartes chapters, the good Primarch should do well. Sadly, he would lack blanks for the next chapters, so he was given enough war clones instead. Next time we meet, I should have enough to bring him up to strength. My fleet departed for Forge Grya, where more of my successor chapters would join the Halo Crusade, including the mourners that have just visited Terra to get ratified. The grieving chapter would pass by Forge Phaeton, then join up as well, hopefully gaining more ships from a trade or two. The entire Imperium was gearing up for war, and Forge Worlds were churning war material and ships as much as they could, but the Imperial losses were also magnificent. Entire fleets were eaten by Tyranids, or defected to Chaos, or both. New Primaris chapters were being founded every week, and they lost some to Chaos in the same year or sooner. And while these Chaos traitors would not be very experienced, they would have modern new gear and Primaris strength, which made them quite dangerous anyways. That also meant that numerous firstborn veteran Marines were being recalled to undergo the Rubicon Primaris, as to shore up the lack of experience in new chapters. It was a bit of a shuffle, and that helped the Alpha Legion infiltrate and corrupt even more planets or Astartes chapters. There was even a band of traitors called the Punishers we had to stop for a few hours to exterminate, although Nova Mines and teleports were rather easy. I didn't understand why it was such a big deal. Once we reached Forge Grya, I got a king's welcome, to my surprise. I didn't even do that much lately. Titans paraded on orbital space walkways, Skitarii gathered in ranks and fired 9 shots towards the sky in my honor, the whole red carpet. Lord Lancefire, more wine? Maybe some phased arrayed ice cream cake? Their fabricator Locum offered in a servile voice, while the fabricator general rubbed his tentacles in anticipation. I sighed inward. I did bring gifts. My travels had been rather fortunate, in obtaining STC templates and even some archaeotech samples. I spoke gently, and sipped more wine. We know you did, Lord Lancefire. I also remember meeting you a few centuries ago, when you were a simple rogue trader peddling his wares for a few missiles. There are 33 Astartes chapters gathered at my forge now, and more incoming, I presume. The fabricator general said in a polite voice, I hope for 42 chapters to arrive, while we prepare your forge for macro industry. Taking on the Necron Maynok_dynasty will be difficult even so. I explained in a more level voice. While I was still the same rogue trader, I was something more as well now. Do you need your fortress to begin, my lord? The fabricator Locum asked politely, while setting down another bottle of priceless wine. Oh, I already began formatting the star system. Bring the system map online. It works best if you advise me on your preferred deployment. Iron asteroids, all around, spaced in orbital rings, or gathered in lumps at gravitational nodes? I asked, curious. Oh. That changes things a bit, but we can work with it, surely. Radioactive minerals here, separated by a kilometer of void to reduce criticality. Precious metals near this moon, for better surveillance while we mine. Iron and nickel asteroids, 3 concentric belts and a larger lump near the space docks. The fabricator replied with accurate locations on the holomap. Much easier indeed. In a few hours, I had the metals organized, then we started with a space hulk and more damaged ships, ice and methane comets, and then minefields, rock asteroids, barriers, and other smart stuff the Mechanicus dreamed about, but had less ability to do in a short time. My head started to hurt before the day was over, a sure sign I overused my ability. Tomorrow we continue. I don't want to get laid in bed for a week, like the last time I abused myself. I muttered in a tired voice. Of course. There's no rush, Lord Lancefire. The fabricator general allowed graciously, and splattered me with holy oil. I was not a defective machine, damn it. I moved to my room and left the Terminator plate beside the bed as I crashed. I think I slept for 12 hours, until Canis licked my face, feeling bored. Woo. Ah. He explained with a wise voice. Right. I did have more things to do, other than trading favors. Shower, skip through the labyrinth inside my plate, and ready. Brother Joeton, any news? I asked as I sipped some black tea. The mourners arrived while you slept. Otherwise, normal stuff, he said with a sly voice. I scanned the system by habit, and noticed a certain Primarch had joined the mourners, alongside a whole bunch of Imperial scribes, Lex mechanics and an entire Indomitus fleet, that included some 50 White Scars chapters and successors. And all this, in a single day. It is almost like I was expected. I noticed with a wry voice. I did say it was normal. For you, I mean. My bodyguard said cheekily. Then again, I wasn't too surprised. And there are 200 Death Corps regiments, all hoping to die for the Emperor, I continued as I detailed my scans and investigated the contents of the new fleet. Would you deny them their divine redemption? Joeton asked with a knowing voice. I thought about it for a long minute. Spartans should know how to best use the manic suiciders. Still, when facing Necrons, morale would be a factor, especially as losses mounted into billions. There wasn't much a normal human could do to withstand Gauss beams and all those advanced weapons. The Kriegers would not break, which meant holding certain spots could be done with certainty, at least until orbital bombardment could level the field. Level the Krieg unit as well, but they wouldn't mind. I'll need a dozen high-ranking Krieg officers detached to my command. And 20 infantry-only regiments, equipped with extra crack grenades and melter bombs. We'll call it the Suicide Corps. I spoke on my Vox bead, letting my Inquisitor wife know I was awake and aware of the situation. It will be done, Lord Lancefire. I'll set the forge on the task. The Inquisitor replied with a calm voice, as she already realized what I meant. Frugal, some may call it. Only 10%? Joeton asked as we walked towards the bridge. Judicious use of resources. They want to die, so I will give them the right place. Plus, there is no point wasting expensive tanks and artillery when we fire down from orbit. I commented in a cold voice. True as well, if a bit callous. Maybe I could do something about their Vitae wombs, upgrade their clone soldiers with my clone skeins? It would surely impress the Emperor, I was certain. An hour later, I walked through the labyrinth to meet the Sword Primarch, now wearing an exceptional suit of armor, possibly better than his old one. Primarch Khan. I hear you are chopping down all the Imperium's enemies. Good job. I offered politely, although his entourage didn't seem very impressed. Not all of them, for certain. You're doing half my job for me, even using my gene seed to create more Astartes. Imagine my surprise. The warrior Primarch quipped in a light voice, and patted my shoulder in a friendly manner. He didn't seem upset, so all was good. Stage 2 then. Come, we will need to plan some stuff, away from others, I said in a level voice, then vanished with the Primarch and into my tesseract. 3 Vulcan clones waited beside a certain stasis coffin holding a dead Primarch, while the live one stared for a long minute. Do you know who killed my brother? Khan asked in a cold, deadly voice. Multiple forces are involved. The Fulgurite Creed from the cult Mechonicus. Also called the Brotherhood of Petrified Lightning. The Alpha Legion on the order of Alpharius himself. Some word-bearers. A bunch of Inquisitors and other human agents, including other Perpetuals. And many Xenos of various species, leading a conspiracy called the Cabal. I explained in a low voice, not that there was anyone else here, and these 3, you cloned them? Just like the new Fulgrim? Khan asked in a milder voice. Same technology, yes. Although Anzian took the lead and cloned the other 2. I'm not exactly a genius Janetta, but I'm learning, I said modestly. Khan advanced and measured the clones, looking for defects. They feel so muted. Not quite blanks but dim. Faded. He realized after a few minutes. We were designed like this, as to protect us from the warp. We also carry null wands, but those are not perfect either. Anzian spoke with a gentle voice. And you carry his memories. Do you remember who did it? Who killed Vulcan? Khan asked with a vengeful voice. Those memories were edited. Some other things too, when we were first born on Luna. Selenites are probably involved as well. Spartan spoke next, and proving once more a bit smarter than me. Oh well. They weren't called Primarchs for smashing things. Spartan and M are specialized in ground and void combat. And Strategus back home does logistics. My own idea, but it seemed to work so far. I added in self-praise. I did have a spark of genius sometimes. You should have started with diplomacy, Lancefire. Shore up your weak point first, not boost your stronger ones. Although genetics will be useful. I hear about new gene mods coming from Terra lately, Khan said in a more relaxed voice, even taking his hand from the sword pommel. Hey! I do diplomacy all the time. I trade with Forge Worlds, then manage my domain, pick up new girls. I claimed in half outrage. The four giants chuckled at my antics. You're lucky to be alive, but then luck seems to be your main power. The Inquisitors managed diplomacy for you, M said with a smirk, and it was quite true as well. I didn't really like state visits and honeyed words. War was always an option. Never mind all that. I need brainpower now. Let's murder these Necrons, before they murder too many humans. Agreed? I asked rhetorically. Go in a cell time, Lancefire. And bring in some cartographic cogitators, Spartan demanded with an eager voice. Sure, let's plan this crusade right, for once. I never needed to, but Necrons could be dangerous. They also had tesseracts and Catan shards sometimes, while waiting for more Astartes chapters to arrive, and the ships to get a bit repaired and upgraded. I continued my work with the Forge Grier tech priests, and was given unlimited access to their STC constructors. 3 of them. One had a domain with power armor and various offshoots like the Thalax cyborg warriors, one had tracked vehicles, mainly chimeras and their variants, and last constructor had a wide range of bionics and brain implants, way too many to enumerate. First things first, I took out the Necron repair orb and fixed the millennia of neglect and hardened oil spills and various accidents common to all religious manufacturing, plus holes and gaps left behind by obvious battle damage and percussion maintenance. Next, I gently and subtly copied their STC database and then began to add my own projects and discoveries, some of which were present but locked or damaged, others completely unknown, like most iron technology except shields. I even left a whole file on the Texorcist's warding skills, and also applied them to the constructors themselves, as to guard them against warp incursions and malicious infiltration. The tracked STC was the easiest to use and repurpose, for obvious reasons. It was relatively simple tech, unchanged for 15,000 years or more. Adding the Ragnarok patterns for tanks and transports was quite easy, but creating new STC's templates on the rush was not advised. Forge Grier had extremely well-prepared tech adepts that would recognize tech heresy at a glance. Better not strain my relations with them over forceful advancements. I did have plenty of technologies to share anyways, more than they could repay in the next 10,000 years, to be fair. One thing I did do, was mess with a Ragnarok transport template and change it into a tank destroyer pattern, using the Rapier laser destroyer template, a small tracked vehicle, already loaded into the constructor. But I left the power cables and all the targeting logi engines separate and disconnected, as if I was unable to finish the work. They would know it was me, but also give them something to work on to fix the template. The Power Armor STC received all of my known Astartes armor templates, plus several mods and variants obtained or stolen from other chapters, or from the Death Watch. I also added the Exo frames, the Exo armor and the Invictus warsuit, since I did have their complete and original STC templates on hand, plus an unfinished Terminator plate suit to give them something to work on. The Lorica Thalax combined both an Astartes power armor and a dreadnought life support systems and limbs into a powerful war engine, which was sadly too damaged to be used properly until I arrived. They could also use my war clones for the pilot inside, since the clones were more durable and resilient to pain and stress. I matched a few demiurge weapons to the armor, including iron beamers and las beamers, beside their original and powerful weapons like the lightning underscore gun or the multi-melter, creating 2 more Thalax variants for my own needs in this crusade. Meaning anti-Necron work. I also inserted shield crests on the Thalax, as to give them an energy shield adjacent the powerful Necron beams. The last constructor was the least usable by me, since I was not a real tech adept. Messing with delicate brain implants was quite delicate, but I did add the hexagrammic data wards into the STC library, plus the demiurge barrier tech devices like the warding staff and shield, should they ever get to explore it all. There was a gigantic wealth of knowledge in there, and Forge Grier likely used only a few percents. Turning off the accelerated time field, I emerged from the last constructor vault a bit older and much more tired. Must have spent a century in there was so much to learn and see. How is it, Lord Lancefire? Were you able to unlock anything? The Fabricator General asked with a worried voice. The truth is, the last constructor is much too advanced for me. I could only repair it to functionality and peek a little inside the library, but it is too vast for a simple man to understand. I explained politely, and mostly truthful. I did have some Primarch-grade mines hidden on my Blackstone fortress that should understand it all eventually, and Zion the most. The other 2? The Fabricator Locum asked with no ulterior reason. Those were much simpler. I already used tanks and power armor with my units, see? I quipped with a light voice. That you do, and very competently, for a human. The Fabricator admitted with slight envy. Here I have the last gifts, a cache of Knight and Titan STCs from my own personal library. Some of them are original and complete templates, others are modified by other people over the millennia, but I tested them at Machine Forge and they work anyways. You saw the Lancefire Knights and the Deus Ex Titans, right? I asked rhetorically. It wasn't from the goodness of their iron hearts that I received such welcome and access to their priceless STC. The Fabricator took my data slates with reverence, and only nodded. Your holy work for the recovery of knowledge will never be forgotten, Pef Lancefire. You will have our full support in any and all endeavors. Anything you need. He promised in a grave voice. That's great, actually. I did want to ask if Forge Grier would support the crusade towards the Necrons down south. I saw some awesome Thalax models in your constructor. Maybe you can print 1 million units and have them escort my forces? Primarch Khan would also be glad, I'm sure. I exclaimed with a happy voice. The 2 fabricators glanced at each other and exchanged some hidden code. Resources will not be a problem, not the metal at least. But Thalax warriors do require pilots. Not anyone can become one, same as with Astartes. I understand, Fabricator. I will provide the pilots as well, same clade of war clones I use for the auxiliar units. But, if you want to obtain the Necron spoils, then what is left of this Thalax macro clade after the crusade will remain under my command. They will work wonders against Orc and Tyranids as well, I demanded in a more authoritative voice. Blackstone? The Fabricator asked with a bit of greed. Blackstone, Necron artifacts, their planets. Anything you want. I will depart this sector anyways. I proposed and held out my hand. Good trade. Both fabricators exclaimed and grabbed my hand in a mechanical vice. I would think so too. They extended their reach and fortunes, while I gained a robotic army that I could always repair or replenish with new war clones. Let's get the documents signed then. Words are nice, but I do have enemies too. Better cover myself in legal plating. Adamantium Lex. I proposed a minute later. The Thalax may wear power armor and Astartes-grade weapons, but they were not battle brothers. Even 1 million of them shouldn't be a problem with the Codex Astartes. Right?